Good afternoon, Brian Hayes on LBC. It's 5 minutes past 12, and today, in this hour, we meet the man who wrote and, of course, first performed this hit.
Well, it's one for the money, two for the show, three to get ready now. Go, cat, go, but don't.
Well, there it is. That's Blue Suede Shoes. If you thought there was something a little bit different about it, it's because A, it's the Carl Perkins version, but B, more importantly, it's a new Carl Perkins version. Good afternoon, Carl Perkins.
Hello, Brian. How are you, pal?
I'm very well. Why have you decided not to make another record, but to re-record Blue Suede Shoes?
Well, this all came about as, this is a cut from an album called My Tribute to Rock and Roll.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something I've been wanting to do for a long, long time. And Elvis Presley's producer, a fellow by the name of Felton Jarvis, right after Elvis passed away, he came to see me and he said, I really would love to record you, Carl. And we together came up with the idea that we might just go back and do some of the old songs that we felt contributed to early rock, rock and roll music. Things like Rock Around the Clock, Maybelline, That's All Right Mama, and of course we slipped Blue Suede Shoes in there.
Yeah. Actually, this, you called it a tribute to rock and roll. We're calling it Old Blue Suede's Back, which
Right.
sounds to me a bit of a pinch from somebody else's title, but quite a catchy one just the same. Let's go back, though, and talk about the original version of Blue Suede Shoes. I remember it very vividly. I'm almost embarrassed to say, because it reveals your age and mine, I think. It really was not very much different from that. But it was fairly different from Elvis Presley's, which, of course, ultimately was the big success, wasn't it?
Well, strangely enough, Brian, I wrote the song in early November of '55. We recorded it about the middle of November. It came out on January the 1st, 1956, and it started out, the other side of the record, Honey Don't, was the one that was getting the plays around Memphis, and all of a sudden somebody flipped it over and Blue Suede Shoes started gaining ground, and by the 1st of March it was the #1 country, pop, as well as rhythm and blues song in America. And it was on March the 22nd, I was on my way to the Perry Como show, and I had a very serious car accident, and it was during that period that Elvis recorded the song. Elvis never had it on a single record. He had it on what they call an EP back in those days.
That's right, yeah.
And but he did wonders for the song because it was at a time when Presley was starting to happen, and he was really identified with Blue Suede Shoes and Hound Dog. And but my version of this Blue Suede Shoes, the original version, sold between 2 and 3 million records.
Did you resent the fact that he had it really as part of his success?
No, I never did. I always felt very grateful that I was even able to record, period. You know, it was a dream come true for me. I was just a poor country boy who had the dream of someday being on record. And I told somebody the other day, the only regret that I have about Elvis and Blue Suede Shoes, and I just regret that he didn't record every song I ever wrote, because he certainly didn't hurt my record of it at all.
The accident you had was a very tragic one. You lost your brother, didn't you?
Right.
Did it take you a long time to recover? Because that really put a hole in your career, didn't it?
Yes, it did, Brian, and it happened at, right at the peak when things were really happening for me. And it did take me a long time. I mean, my brother Jay, of course, there was 3 of us boys, and we all 3 played on the record Blue Suede Shoes. Jay played rhythm guitar, my younger brother Clayton played bass. And Jay and I were very, very close. We were brothers in the serious of sense. We shared when we were growing up, and it was a tough thing to even think about going back on the stage without him. And it was for 6 months that I just didn't do it. I couldn't.
And what did you do when you started to get back into a situation where you felt like working again?
Well, I started reaching down and trying to pull confidence. My wife, my mom and dad, my close friends said, Carl, you can't quit. You got to go. That's what Jay would want you to do. And I used to walk on the stage, and I just let him talk to me. He'd say, "Go ahead and sing and pick your guitar, Carl. I'm still with you." And it was through the love of the close people around me that got me.
Yeah, that's
Back
the thing.
on stage.
If you've got people around you.
Oh, we all have to have, Brian. You just cannot afford to think anyone in any kind of business, in any walk of life, you cannot make it alone.
Yeah.
It wasn't intended that way. We've got to have friends and love.
Well, Presley's career, of course, was one of those, showbiz stories, one of the legends. It was straight up.
Yeah.
You, of course, didn't have that kind of luck. You moved from Sun Records, didn't you?
Right.
And that may, looking back now, have been a bad move. Do you think it was?
Well, really, I don't know. It might have been, and yet those who are listening, who know the story of Sun Records, know that I wasn't the only one to leave. Charlie Rich, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, Warren Smith, Roy Orbison. The lineup of people there were just a tremendous roster of talent, and they all left. I'm not the one to say their reasons for going. I had my own, but looking back, it's such a shame that that company couldn't have held together with the artists they had, because
What happened to Sam Phillips?
he's still in the music business, not as much nearly as he was. His son, Knox Phillips, still operates the Sun Studios down in Memphis. Mr. Phillips is semi-retired and I guess counting his money.
Yeah, did you all leave for broadly similar reasons?
Yes, I think so. In talking with the other guys, there was one dividing thing there at Sun Records, and it seemed to be the same thing for all of us. It's a dream of a beginner to be on a major label. There's something very attractive about saying I'm with so-and-so label. It's well known, and but it
Like
was
Columbia, which you went
right,
to. Yeah.
right. Mm-hmm. But then it also, it can be a great thrill to be on the groundwork of a big happening like Sun Records was. It was great to be there, and looking back on it now, I'd like to see the thing held together. I really would, because they put out some great records.
It hasn't really answered the question, has it? What was it that Sam Phillips did, or the company did? Was it that he wouldn't allow the company to grow large enough to keep these people with Sun Records, or what was it?
Well, the bigger labels were offering better deals.
Ah, so it was money.
Right.
As simple as that.
That's the key word.
Yeah.
They made it very attractive for all of us, and as soon as our contracts were up at Sun, there was somebody from the major label knocking on your door at home.
Yeah.
And,
Well, all right, you went to Columbia Records. We'll talk about that in a moment, because that wasn't necessarily the golden answer to all your problems either, was it?
oh, not at all.
We'll talk about that shortly. With me is Carl Perkins. We'll hear some more from the album, Old Blue Suede's Back, and you're with LBC News Radio 24 hours a day.
More than just a phone-in, it's Brian Hayes on LBC.
With me is Carl Perkins. We're going to play one of my favourites in a moment, the Hank Williams song called Elijah, which I love very much. You've
Great.
put it on this new album, but just before we do that, I want to ask about this move to Columbia Records, because, as I say, that wasn't the golden answer, was it?
No, it wasn't. Columbia had great plans for me in the very beginning, and the first record I put out on Columbia was a thing called Pink Pedal Pushers. And it started out rather nice. It started getting real good plays. But it started dying down pretty quick, too. And on a major label, Brian, if you don't watch, you'll become a number, rather, in a filing cabinet. And I had 5 years of that.
Yeah. Who were the other big people on the Columbia list at the time? Guy Mitchell or some people like
Yeah,
that?
Guy Mitchell was there. Gosh, they had a string of them, but
Frankie Lane?
Frankie Lane. The first one to really strike big with Columbia joined the same day that I did, and the same guy, Don Law, who was an A&R man with Columbia Records, signed Johnny Cash and me the same time. And of course, Cash's history. He made just one hit right after the other with them.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't happen that way with me, and I struggled for 5 years. I could not get away from the contract, and they were doing nothing but, I guess, going by the filing cabinet and saying, there's 0674, you know.
It's a bit depressing talking about all the down years, but still, I suppose if we talk about the down years, we can then get onto the good years,
yeah.
because you later joined up with Johnny Cash, didn't you, and spent
Right.
quite a lot of time with him.
Mm-hmm.
Right, let's get on to a track from the album, as I say, one of my favourite Hank Williams songs, and I'm just trying to think who did a cover version. Was it Frankie Lane? I think it might have been. Anyway, the song was
I
called
think he
Elijah,
did.
and here's your new version of it. Well, there we are, Elijah, and that is the new recording of it by Carl Perkins from the album which comes out in a few weeks called Old Blue Suede's Back. 21.5 minutes past 12, and 3538111 is the telephone number if you'd like to call in. Any of the old rock and rollers in particular, I'm quite sure you'd like to have a chat with Carl Perkins. He's with me through until 1 o'clock. Let's dispense with the down years, because you had a few tough years, didn't you? You had problems with alcohol.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I did. And that was a problem. It really was, Brian.
How did it start?
Well-
Were you naturally a big drinker?
Before I started at Sun Record Company, my brothers and I played the local clubs. They were just known as honky-tonks around the area there, around Jackson, Tennessee, where I lived at that time, and I still live in Jackson, as a matter of fact. But we played the honky-tonks, and it was just a normal happening for the people to set a bottle on the amplifier for old Carl, and says he played better, he'll dance and sing and carry on. And
A bottle of what?
just hard liquor. A lot of times it was moonshine, homemade type things, and but it was something that could definitely, you know, as we say over there, get you in high gear. And I was drinking much more than I realized, even when I started recording at Sun. But then it was after my brother Jay died that it seems like I really turned to it a lot. I thought I found within the contents of the bottle the answer to my loneliness, the answer to problems that liquid seemed to make them dissolve. But it was only after 10 or 12 years of this that I found out I was compounding them.
And you were wrong, like everybody else has been.
Well, if a man cannot handle it, when he has to have it to get out of bed of a morning, when he'll hide it in the rose bushes around his house,
Yeah.
or in the trunk of his car to make sure that he don't run out, he's in trouble. And it's not an easy thing to quit.
Did you ever go further and use drugs of any kind?
No, I've sampled a pill or two when I was with my friend John Cash, because as John has stated in his Man in Black book, he had a problem. But when I would be full of alcohol, the pill didn't have a chance. So I never was hooked on any kind of drug.
Yeah.
But alcohol was tough enough.
But you have beaten it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I quit 10 years ago, this past October. Now I might have a glass of wine or occasional drink, but no bourbon. I haven't had a drink of whiskey since 10 years ago.